Shall we go? Okay. So I wanted to ask Katherine first if you could just introduce yourself in any way that you feel is that you want.
Okay, so hello, my name is Katherine Bihlmeier, and I'm half French and half Austrian, working international with people who actually want to have changes in their lives, facilitating them. Also, I'm facilitating for the teaching of a bath and body processes, and I'm working with kids around the world through Zoom, through personal, through meetings, giving groups since nearly 20 years. So I guess now you still know nothing because because what I'm actually doing is really facilitating people what they want actually in their lives.
So I wanted to ask you actually to talk more about maybe those the techniques, I guess, or the methods that you used.
The techniques and the methods are actually just for your mind. So you see something or you have a method for your mind, so your mind goes like, that's the method and that's why it works. And actually it's more, everything is for me just an energetical stuff. And it's always your choices. I mean, I can't do anything if you don't choose it. If you don't want to choose it, even if it's unconsciously, nothing is gonna change until you are at the point where you're ready to let it go, also on your unconscious level. So it's always your choices, it's always your will. But that's with everyone. Nobody can do something where you are not really totally in allowance to have this change. It's always you, actually.
So access consciousness and access bars, and because I also went with you to a class of Qigong, are those more tools for your practice, which is sort of, I guess it extends beyond that, or is it, how would you define it? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I love to not put any definition, and I like to leave also my definition about my work or about myself. And for the mind and for this recording, I would say it's beyond. It's really beyond.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, what really happens is for me not describable with your mind actually yet. And scientifically, there are already stuff like the matrix and stuff like everything is connected, and so everything has an effect. And there is also scientifically, it's already shown that everything what you think is like an energy which you send out, and it's gonna create and manifest. So the scientific level is coming slowly, but I'm experiencing this already since 20 years, and I see just scientifically people coming up slowly. Yeah, I don't know if this was understandable.
But I wanted to ask you, how did this sort of journey come about for you? How did you find out about this kind of, I guess, how did you start? Or
I started out of being very miserable and more wanting to leave my life. Being in a marriage was really not really nice, and having a child which was crying a lot, and I was really miserable, I would say. And I started asking questions, actually. I started asking questions, and I started with a book where, about affirmations. And I started also, when you start asking questions live, it's actually you put your energy and your intention to something, and life is gonna answer this. And then I got to know a man called Thomas Hübel, with whom I worked quite a long time. I was also assisting, and he's working international, and this helped me a lot. Also, another teacher which I worked, was Paul Lowe. Those teachers were the most output, actually, or inputs for me to really get into my how would I say, my capacities, and really open up the channels and also the limitations of the mind, which I put it when I was young, because I felt really, really so differently from a lot of youngest, and also from my parents. And most of the time I was just on my own in the garden and having fun, but nobody would, get me really. And because of also at school time feeling so like different, and so also like not just different but also like wrong, and not my whole life I wish to find actually a person who has also the same capacities and looks like to life in the same way, so I could say, okay, that's normal. That's why I was looking the whole time of my life actually for a person who has also these capacities. And I found those teachers, and I developed more and more my energy, in processing a lot of programs and getting rid of a lot of distractions and restrictions, actually, also in myself, just opened up and got my energy more and more powerful. That's what I would say, or intense, or yeah.
So you were talking about the people that you've met and sort of the book with the affirmations that you wrote.
Yes.
And that was the first sort of, was that the first notion of something different, I guess, that you could use for your life?
It brought me to the teachers, and it brought me to different mind settings or different views of life, which was much more common, or much more what I was knowing already, which was meeting more my own wisdom, actually.
At the time, that was just sort of, you used it for your own life, and you didn't yet think about working with people, yeah?
Not at all. No, not at all. At this time, I was still working. I had this little child with, I think, 3-ish or 4-ish years. And I was working actually in a kindergarten, and at the same, also in the weekends, in a shop for clothes, actually, in a very luxury shop in Vienna. And just trying to change my life, actually, with everything what I could grab on, everything what works for me. And yeah, so, and it brought a lot of big changes. I mean, divorcing, getting out of the house, starting all over, having a kid on my own. Yeah, it changed a lot. And I think the biggest shift for me was a 3 weeks workshop with Paul Lowe. He's not anymore into that. He's retired now. And I think I got a lot of amazing happenings for me. And when I came home, I had really a couple of, wow, what's happening? Suddenly my whole view changed. Really, my whole view was changing. everything was lightening up and very lightful, and I started to see black spots at the beginning when people would start to come to me and tell me their problems, even not knowing people, and I would start seeing black spots. That's how it began, after this big awakening in the woods with other people. And they told me, actually, Katherine, you just had a big awakening. I was like, okay, I have no idea, but suddenly everything was just totally different. And yes, and I was starting to really do a lot of just telling the people what I see or what happened or what I would get, and then with their feedback, like, oh, if you say that, then I get that, and this is happening in my body, and this is, and I get a connection to this, and suddenly something dissolved. And that's how I got to this work, actually. And then starting to be more and more really the main assistant at the beginning for Thomas Hübel was also helping me to get my energy really on and my capacities in a field which I could experience and also get the feedback from the people what's happening then. But it was very autodidact. I didn't had any, schools for that or any teachings. I had a mentor, a healer, actually, which I met also. And it, when you start going in a direction which is more yours, everything unfolds. People come and you meet people who help you on your way, really. I was also, before I was really starting to work, I got to meet a healer, a person, a woman who was really calling herself a healer, actually. And I met her and she was like, do you want to do healing sessions with me? And I was like, wow, if I can assist you and have a look how you do it, then yeah. And suddenly it turns very often out that the people wanted to come just to me afterwards. And so there was something. And where I was very lucky is that I could see the energy flows always through the body. So when I was saying something, I could see what is happening in the body. And this helped me really a lot. So I can trust more and more to my seeing, to my capacities, and allow even more of that. Because at the beginning, when I remember when the woman who was already a healer and working as a healer, when she told me, you put your hands on, I was so feeling weak in my belly, and I could really throw up, and I was really like so in fear, actually, that I could do something and harm. I had no idea. And just going into that and allowing everything and still going for it, and hearing the feedbacks of the people really allowed that I just take a step, and then suddenly you are somewhere else.
But before we continue in this direction, I wanted to just ask you to understand better what were the biggest changes in like your system once you had discovered, like you were talking about awakening and sort of seeing things completely differently. Could you like just sort of make a parallel between like what you believed before and what came afterwards?
It was actually when I was in America with this 3 weeks workshop with Paul Lohe, and I was saying to my sister, she was also with there, I was like, okay, I was there for 3 weeks, but nothing really, I don't have a feeling really that really something big shifted. And then there was Hawaiianish healer, and she was giving, she was known in this field of Poloe, and she was giving at the end like board sessions. And I met her, I saw her, and I couldn't go anywhere else than just standing there and watching her doing. And I was really like so, I can't say it in words, but I was really like totally drawn into her work. And since this time, I didn't have anything to do with healing or energy or whatever. My life was really like, I have a kid, I have a husband, I have a house, I'm working, and that's it. That was really my life at this point. And then just seeing her, suddenly she grabbed me and put me on the chair, and she was working with me, and I opened my eyes, and I saw already everything very different. But when I came home, I was walking through the woods, and suddenly I was like, wow, like it was like you had, everything was much more lighter. Like you had a big light going through my eyes, and I'm seeing everything much bigger, much lighter, much more, how do you say it, when you see really from afar away the small little things, and much more, I don't know it in English. Yes, yeah, like you can see the Umrisse, you know, and everything very light. I don't know in English, but it, and then I was looking at that, and I was like, wow, what's happening here? And then suddenly I really got this perception of what we think with our eyes, what we think is our perception is not real at all. And since this time, my eyes are seeing a tree, but actually I'm just seeing through the tree. It's like I'm seeing what is real, because the tree is just like a projection of your mind. So that since then, that's my universe.
And this woman, she was like, she worked with like it was energy.
Yeah, she was well known in this field, and she's amazing. She really goes. She really opened also up my mind how you just can be really simple and going into holes wherever and really doing something, and your whole view is changing, your whole life is changing. Yeah. Is this the answer of your question? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to just sort of wrap my mind about it. But when you say, for example, you said, I see a tree, but it's not what's real.
Yeah.
Then could you sort of explain a bit more to me, like what was it that you were feeling that it was real?
It's actually that nothing is really stable or really real. Mm-hmm. It's just like you see the tree, and your whole brain is not taking the tree anymore real. I could say that like that. And the perception is much more like an expansion of something else, which is really just an expansion of something. That's how I could describe it the best. It's like there's nothing and there's all.
Yeah, I think I sort of get it.
Yeah.
Like the perception.
Yes.
So it's not so much about the tree, like the perception is just
yes.
Doesn't finish at the tree.
Yes. Yes, totally. Yeah, that's a good word. It doesn't finish at what the eyes tells the brain what you are seeing here. Yeah, totally.
And so how did sort of you working with people, how did that start?
How did that start then, you are asking? Well, then, this healing woman in Vienna, nearby Vienna, invited me to work with her. And she was working and I was holding just the feet, and people started wanting to come and just work with me. And I had also these powerful oils, which I was just starting to also play with this. And once in a workshop with Thomas, I met a woman who is a physiotherapist, and she was not feeling good, and I just did something with my hands, or my hands were just doing, and she was like, "Your hands are wow," and it changed a lot. And the next morning, and she was like, "You need to come to my place." And so I went to her place in the more in the Salzburg is, and then just to visit her, and then she suddenly said, "I told all my patients that we're gonna work with 4 hands," and I was like, "Oh, I have never done such a thing. How could you?" and all that. So I was really like getting in fear again, not knowing anything. It was really like from a perspective there. I knew that there is something going on, but I didn't know actually really the power of it yet. And still, there was in my belly like a fearful belly who was like, "Oh, I could harm somebody or something could help." And she was so trusting, so really going for it, that we did it. And at the end, everyone came again at the weekend to have just a session with me, and then we started to work really together for a couple of years. I would come to her praxis, to her how do you say praxis? No, yeah, to and giving sessions there. And yes, I was just like, universe just throw me into the water, and I was just starting to do it actually. And then I met a healer, and he was starting like, "We healer, Katherine," and I was like, what? I'm a healer? What? And it was a bit, really for my mind, it was really very like mind-blowing actually. Really mind-blowing. And fun, because I was really acknowledging experience. It was really a totally new world for me. And I'm still, my world is still like experiencing and experimenting and still seeing what else is possible, even with my energy.
So when you work, you sort of, you also, like a session would be also like dialogue and energy work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, because we sort of touched on that subject while I was staying with you, how would you sort of compare psychotherapeutical or psychotherapy to what you do? Because psychotherapy doesn't really bring change, and that it's a different thing, I suppose.
Yeah. I have been to 3 psychotherapists, different ones, and my life didn't change at all. I knew more here, but in my whole life, my life was still miserable. The same emotions, the same thoughts were still coming up the whole time. So the issues were all still the same. So for me, it didn't work. And I had a couple of people working with me who had already kind of a psychotherapist before, And maybe this is sometimes the first step where you start to get more conscious about yourself. And just getting conscious about yourself is not making the change yet. And what I see with me is really in these years that really parts of the life of people are really changing, where they're really not just their life is changing and it's easier and more fun and more lighter, and they have tools where they can help themselves, but also they start to open up with their capacities and their potentials, and also starting to seeing through, and also gaining much more what life is really about, what it is really about, and getting more out of the limitations. So it's not just like situations or emotions, or you don't react or you react in another way. It's really also that your capacities and your potentials really starts to grow and to get more in your conscious, in your, also more in your awareness, actually, what you're capable of.
So what do you think is inside?
And for me, since now I haven't met one psychotherapist who really, in this therapy, this is really happening. I mean,
what do you think is the sort of the thing that you do in psychotherapy that sort of keeps people a little bit like at the same place? And what do you think it is in your work that sort of pushes them to make the changes in terms of like how it works and like what's the inherent mechanism, I guess?
that's a very good question. So let's ask and see what comes up. I can't answer this from my mind. I guess it's a couple of different things, but actually my allowance to be totally with my depths is also allowing others to connect with their depths and not just staying on the surface. And because I'm not fearing anything what I could see in myself, or which I could suddenly acknowledge or recognize or find out of myself, even it doesn't matter in which depths I am. I think this is also giving the space to others to also, whatever you will find out about yourself, that's not a problem, and you can change this in this. You can change this in this second. And I think what really is not the common with me and other healers or other people who are energetic working is really the depth of it. You tell me something, you tell me a stories, I'm not gonna stay there. What is also very different is I'm seeing you as a master. I'm not seeing you as a problem and having problems in your world. I'm just seeing you as a master who somehow disconnected from your own mastery and your own wisdom. And the only thing what this energy is doing is reconnecting you with your wisdom more and more, and what you are aware of and what you know and your capacities, so you can help yourself every time better and better and better, and also really start to creating your life how you truly want it. Yeah.
That's what I actually, some of the things that I wanted to ask you is because I've heard you and Sarah and so other people like talk a lot about creation. And so if you could maybe talk about what that is.
Yeah. I'm going to start with what creation is not. Or what we think is creating and it's not. When you have, let's say in the normal world, a problem, which for me it doesn't exist. Like a tree doesn't exist on one level, it's just expansion. So if there is energetically something showing up, like we would say a problem, then I don't buy this problem. But you are gonna buy this problem, and then out of Überlebensmodus, survival modus, you are gonna want to fix the problem. So you go up in your mind and you try to figure out how to fix or change this problem. But the mind here, the brain, has all this experience which you had in the past, also maybe in past life, and also in this life. And it doesn't have any new things. So even if you think this is totally new, it's just going to be something which you experienced already in your past, which worked there, and you're going to take that tool or this solution to make it work again. But life as it owns doesn't need to be worked, doesn't need to be fixed, and it doesn't need to be worked out. Even you. So what we are doing is we are finden.
Inventing.
We are inventing. We are not creating. In a survival modus, we are inventing, which is not creating. But your whole creation power, which you really have, is still gonna create stuff. So your mind and your person, Isidora, has a problem. We need to fix that. We need to change that. So we need to think about it and find a way how to change that, which is gonna still be limited. But this is just gonna, everything what comes out is an invention or a reinvention even. And creation works for me like where you go into a space where you don't know. Like when I was starting to put my hands on, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about it in my mind. I was just allowing to be in a space where something can happen. And even I wasn't in a space where I needed to make something happen. I was just like the space of everything what wants to happen can happen. Total allowance. And for me, this is creation. If you can be the space and the expansion to ask for what you want in a change, and then even allowing yourself in this space through the questions to receive what you created. And it's never gonna show up as you thought. Or sometimes we make pictures out of that. Oh, I wish the house of that and that. So when I ask questions, I always ask questions which are broader than my mind would ask normally. And this is creating. And I'm also, when I have choices to make, because you can choose every time, every 10 seconds you can choose new. Every time when I choose or I need to choose something, I'm asking, the first question is, if I choose that, is this going to create for me? Is this going to create my truly desired future, which I don't know here? And if my body is really like light and wide and expanded, then for me this is a yes, and then I go for it. And I don't know what is gonna be the outcome. I don't know how this is gonna be. I'm just throwing myself totally unknown in new experiencing and receiving what's gonna happen without any judgment. And this for me is that's your creating power, which comes from a place of for me, in a higher space, higher self, connected with the universe or with God, or however what you want to call this energy. But it's you. It's not something which is out of you. It's you. But it's not your mind. It's not your person, which is limited.
Do you think the capacity to be able to do that is, do you suddenly realize it, or is it something, because you were talking, when we were talking, you were mentioning a muscle? Because, for example, I think I know what you say about, like, for example, I find myself in a type of situation and then I go into like a cycle of like stressing out about it, and then I finish that and I find something else to stress out about it, and that's sort of like staying the same sort of mindset of there's problems and then I fix them, or like I live through them and then something else comes up. Yeah. But like it's not, for example, every time that I do try to sort of think outside of or whatever to sort of, it doesn't come easily. It's like, it's also like trying to be creative in something else, like an art or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be like really open to ideas, I'm going to think of something that's really like I've never thought before, but it doesn't really come. Yeah. So I wonder, like, how does that develop?
First of all, you ask questions without wanting an answer. So the space of the unknown, like a child. Children until 2 or 3 years old, they are still in this. They don't know, and they don't need to know. They are drawn, like they see something and they need to run there, or they need to go there, they need to find out, and they don't know why, and they don't know what they're gonna experience there. They just go. And it's the same. You just go, you totally throw yourself actually into the arms of life. And there is even no trust, because life is very kind. It's never gonna hurt you. If there is hurt and pain, then it's because of your mind setting. That the pain is coming from the mind setting and the perceptions and from the programs. But life is not painful. Life is very kind. It's always gonna have you in the back, and is always gonna look for the kindest and most caring and loving possibilities, actually, which we are not brought up, and we haven't, there wasn't any adults or parents who were telling us that, actually life is this. Everyone in this world, or a lot of people in this world, are just struggling with life because they saw it with their parents. And it has nothing to do what you know with life. But we cut off, we disconnect because we feel wrong as a child. And all that can come back because it's in your matrix, it's here, you have it, it's in your system, it's in your field. It just needs a connection, reconnecting. We have been brought up and also programmed to always think in separation. We separate a lot. Even in our verbal communication, we are saying, would you like this or this? Most of the time. But life is not this or this. It's all. And these are just little examples.
How do you work with, you were talking about things that happen in the childhood, and how do you work with, like, the marks that are left on a child in like the early childhood, like traumas or just like different emotions that are frozen up or things like that.
Yeah. First of all, whatever the story is, whatever in your world is the problem, I'm gonna go in such a deep depths, I would say, to get the roots of it, where you start thinking or believing, or where you start programming actually yourself to think something which is now in your world or in your reality, which is actually not real, but you put it up as a reality in you. And then in the sessions I have some tools where we can clean it and clear it out, and you get also tools where every time, even because sometimes what I experience is that there is still needed a Zeuge, somebody who is witnessing with you what happened to you, so you have more ease to have emotional marks which you cut off as a child, because it would be too much for your body, too much for your entire being, and so we cut that off, the emotionals. But the emotionals are like energies which are cut out, and it takes a lot of energy to let it cut out, because energy always wants to float and be alive. And so these emotions actually, or this energy which can't flow in your system, is always going to create other situations that you can come back to this emotion stuff and to let that flow again. And sometimes there is a witness needed to see, yes, really this happened, so are you now willing to go through? And it's not a big deal. It's not a drama. It's not a story. It's energy. For me, it's really energy. Emotions is energy. In motion.
You're saying if like the person is able to sort of relive in a way the sort of situation and fully like stream out the energy.
Yeah. So for me, it's always, when you reconnect with your true self, something is happening. So there is a story in your mind, in a program, causing some troubles in your world, stress or whatever, or reactions, and it always comes up. So if you reconnect, where you start believing something, and that's why this is making waves, you can also reconnect even further if we clean that up with who you truly are, because you're never the story, you are never the emotions, you're never the believings, you're never what you believe, you are much more, which is great, because you're not depending on anything, you can just change it.
What is the true self, or like who we truly are?
The true self for me and for others, in my experience, is like the same like the tree. You look at the tree, and I could see a person who is next to me and has lovely brown eyes and a lovely face and is very beautiful, and I can connect with what is behind that.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions that go like, what is this? And what is energy?
What is energy? For me, it's a broad word for something which doesn't exist and is full. Full in existence too. So it's nothing and it's everything. It's the same like the true self, or a tree, or a flower, or a dog, or a child.
And what is awareness?
What is awareness? For me, awareness is a brain state where there's a possibility of reconnecting with what is and what is not and is.
What is not and what is? Could you say a bit more?
Well, it's just, you can have an awareness of, oh, there are people who are angry in this room, okay? But your awareness for me can be a space actually where life is happening for you. And it just can be also just awareness, like, awareness. It depends I would say it depends on what level of consciousness you are. There are different states of consciousness, and it depends on which level of consciousness you are to get that, I think. I don't know.
I think this has been like one of my main questions, and it's sort of it maybe connects with what you said about energy. It's nothing, it's everything. Because when I listen to things that you talk about, I feel the need to sort of determine because all of the things that you talk about and use could just be perceived as like a mental toolkit. You can sort of use it to sort of change the way you think, and it could be purely at that level, sort of like psychological.
Yeah.
But there's also always like a connotation of something bigger and like what I would label like mystical, or something like a connection to the universe, or like the way you can influence the reality that's not just how you think about it. Is there something like to that?
Yes, totally. You know, all the psychological problems or needing a therapy for that is for me a not lived potential, actually, which is knocking on your door and saying, hey, I want to live. And life is it's potential.
And I feel the need to know, like, how do you think it, or does it not matter? I don't know, like, how do you think it works? It's like, because, for example, Sarah was telling me like how if a person, so there's two, sorry, there's two questions I have. So one is how does it work that I can influence the reality if it's not just purely physically? And the other is how can I influence other people? And especially that connection between like two people, which I also sort of understand as if it sort of becomes one thing. Like it's no longer person A and person B. It's like connection A B, and like if one person changes, does that mean that the other person changes as well? Because I thought that I've gotten something like that idea from Sarah at one point.
Yeah. So what I love in all that work is you can change without that the whole world needs to change, that you can change. That's the first thing. And if you change something in your view, in your perception, in your thoughts of realities, then there is a possibility for other people to also start changing their realities, actually, which is not a must. Because everyone chooses. It's always the free will. It's like, I'm just gonna go with this picture. Your whole body is full of water. And water for me is a neutral element. It has nothing on. It's just water. It's just like this space. There's nothing in and it's full of water. And so it has no information normally. But when you put it somewhere where everyone is shouting and angry, the water is gonna get this information. Okay? So if you change in your reality, in your brain, something, in your mind setting, in your view, your whole body is gonna change. So all the molecules in you are gonna change. When you go into another place or another field and meet other people, it's just like the water. Their water in their bodies have also an effect. So there is a possibility that what you choose to change, they can easier change in theirs. You get that? Because your molecules, your water in your body is already having this change as an information. And wherever you go, this information is gonna build and grow. That's actually, there is a saying or the concept of the chimpanzees started to go on their feet, and there was one who started to grab a banana and peeled it, actually. And at the same time, on other parts of the planet, and they weren't connected physically, other chimpanzees started to peel also. So how is that possible? And for me, it is possible because once you change something, the information is out. And it's not a new information. It's not new. It's not new stuff. So that's the thing. That's why I always love to say, when I give one session, it's a healing work for the whole entire planet, actually, because it goes on.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is this kind of answering your question?
But
you notice in a very in another way also, when you are happy and you go out, you meet a lot of other people who gonna respond to that, or even if they are like that and they see you and they want to choose this, they're gonna start smiling back. And of course there are other people who are still gonna go like, is she crazy, why is she laughing or smiling at me? But that's other, so this is also a possibility. But how your energy field is, it's always gonna get an answer. It's always gonna get a response from everywhere.
I wanted to ask you something else, and that is because I've heard you guys sort of use different statements and questions that sort of you use throughout the day, such as "What else is possible? How can it get any better than this?" And for example, "How can it get any better than this?" I found really interesting because I've sort of heard you use it in context where you're sort of maybe unsatisfied with the situation. So it's more like a question, how can we improve this? And in context where you're completely like satisfied with the situation and it's still like an invitation for more.
Mm-hmm.
And different things like that. And I was wondering if you could talk maybe a little bit more about that. Is it a reminder for yourself and for others, or what is the sort of, how do you use these statements, and does it have to do with what you were talking about? You mentioned affirmations, or is it like a different thing?
I would use it as often as it is possible in your life. Those questions. The first thing, what is happening, the mind can't answer these questions and can't find any solutions to that. So it gives up, and you are already expanding your brain, and everything is starting to expand again. And it brings you out of something where you felt like it's not enough, or it's not really nice or easy, where you have a judgment on it. So it brings you out of the judgment, and it starts creating. You start to get with this question already out of your mind, where you wanted to change something out of solutions, which I just say this is more like reinventing something or inventing something. And in this space, because you expand again, because your mind is gonna go like, I don't know what to do, like, how does it get any better than that? What does she really want? I don't have a solution for that. And in this, your brain starts to relax and expand again. And in this expansion, there is creation possibilities and also receiving possibilities. So use these questions as much as you can possibly ask these questions to start, and other questions will come. And the main thing is, don't do that because you want to change something. Do it just to change you. To change actually your space. To change actually your state. So you see yourself, you're in a judgment, oh, that's not enough, and this is not, that's crazy, that's not nice, blah, blah, blah. And you ask this question to bring yourself in another state or space, than rather staying in this judgmental, separated mind.
What comes to mind to me, for example, sometimes when I've sort of tried it out and stuff, is that it's easy, I think, to fall back into the usual mindset of like having to solve something or having to get over something or something like that. But now you have sort of the content of these ideas that are different, but then sort of use them in the wrong, like, for example, for me, it would be like, maybe when I was talking to Sarah sometimes, and she was suggesting other possibilities to what I was in at the moment, and I would sort of get almost frustrated because I didn't know how to, because it would be like, oh, why don't you try, this is just an example, like it's not a concrete example, but like if you're in a given situation and then, but you know that you could create something else, but you find like you're riding the same cycle, like, oh, I'm supposed to create something, but I'm not creating something, and it's sort of goes into that. It stops being like a surfboard, and more like, why am I incapable of like doing some, like making something better or whatever?
Yeah. The first thing is there's a choice to do. I really want to get out of that. I really want to change something. I really want to see a difference. That's the first thing. And then you ask questions. And the how is never the question, really. It's more like, what would it take to change that? What energy, space, and consciousness can I and my body be? what haven't I yet changed in me, so that the changes, I can see the change? Or, you know, what haven't I yet chosen, that if I would choose it, I would create another reality? So all this, but once you start with the questions and open up more and more to this space, it's like the space is going to give you the questions actually for what you want in each moment. And it's not, it's again, you can't get it with your mind. Your mind is fixed to some realities. It's not, your mind don't get it. But there is something in you where you get it. And I'm never talking to your mind. I'm always talking to this which is gonna get that. This which knows already everything what I'm talking about. So know how. And you know, it's like a child. When you don't know something, you're not sitting here and saying, I would like to bike, but I don't know how. And then sitting here and trying to figure it out how the bike is going to function. No, you're going to take the bike and you're going to start doing something with it and find it out, you know. But you are in actions. And just asking questions is not yet it. It also takes actions. Okay? It also takes that you, if you want to bike, if you want to have another experience, like now I can't bike and I have a lovely bike and I want to bike, so how is not the question, what can I do with that? And then you start experimenting. And every choice, a choice to sit on the settle and putting your feet on it and falling down is just going to bring you more awareness. That's it. So the next time when you go up, you're not going to put immediately maybe 2 feet on the pedals, but you're going to have one, you know. Every choice, what you are going for, is going to create more awareness in you. And with every more awareness you gain, you can choose something different. That's all. It's a choice, creates awareness, and then out of awareness, I can create another choice, and it's going to create another awareness. And that's all about experiencing life. That's very simple. It's like, oh, today I would love to have to not live anymore in a little studio. I want a house. Okay, so you try to figure out what house it would mean, where you would feel good. So, and then you start to go. That's the action. You choose it. You asked. You got an awareness what you want, and then you go into action, like going to visit houses. And with the choices you did, you will see, yeah, I asked for 2, yeah, but actually this is not enough light. So I want light too. But you see, you got this awareness because of choice. If you don't choose, there is no awareness. If you don't choose to get in action, if you don't choose to sit on the bike, you're not going to get any awareness which is going to bring you further. And I always say, life is about mini steps. It's not about big changes. It's about every day, these little my steps. That's good. That's already enough. Just keep on going. Don't give up. Never give up. Always ask your questions and go for it. And it's fun. Because if we would know everything, what would be the fun to experience then?
I wanted to actually ask you, when you work with people, what is there something, what is like most challenging? Like, is there like because I guess like letting go of certain things and accepting, or maybe just, I think maybe like the idea of accepting that you're able to do stuff, actually, like to do whatever it is that you want to do, is a little bit not necessarily, you don't necessarily want to admit to that. What do you find are like the most challenging aspects of like working with people, like or like reaching out to them?
You mean for me or for the person who works with me?
Sorry?
You mean for me or the person who works with me?
No, for you.
The most challenging. You know, I'm someone who always loved challenge. Since I'm a kid, and everything what I was doing, if there was no challenge anymore, I gave it up and I went for something new. Because challenge means for me, I'm more alive, I'm more awake, and I'm gonna be totally awake and aware of what's going on, to experience what is in this moment to experience. So a challenge for me doesn't really exist. It's just really this state of beingness, more and more. I don't have really, it's not a big challenge. I just go with the flow. I ask the questions, and I wouldn't say that I have a challenge with working with people. If somewhere in a session we get stuck, or it looks like it gets stuck, because for me it never gets stuck. There's always a movement. Otherwise you're dead. So it looks like we get stuck, or we don't go further. If we don't go further, there is a possibility that the person doesn't want to go further, and then I leave it there. Because it's always your choices. It's never my choices. It's never my willingness to change you. It's you. And
Yeah, because I was going to ask you. Sorry.
yeah, and it's also not me interpreting something or knowing where you want to go. You know, it's not this. You know what you need as an experience to grow. You know exactly how often you're gonna like to have this experience all over it again to really get everything out of it. You know, you're living your life. It's not me telling you how you need to live your life. I'm just more here to facilitate, or even sometimes give other possibilities. And then you choose.
Because I was going to ask you actually about like about whether or not a person actually knows at any time what it is that they want exactly. And it's sort of like what you were talking about, making a choice and then finding out more about what you want actually is maybe like an answer to that. Like you find out the things that you do want, the things that you don't want, or at least like the things that you don't want, to find out more about what you want.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
is it like is it difficult to find out for people that you work with, for example, what it is that they desire? Because sometimes, at least in my experience, it's like a lot of the time you're just like not really clear about that. Yeah.
You know, in all this work time where I worked with people, a lot of different people came, and also the reason to come to me was very different. But what I found out is actually everyone wants to be reconnected and feeling and being who they truly are. This space who you are when you are really a little child. Because there you are so connected with everything. You're connected with your capacities, even without knowing your capacities. They are very like normal to you. And if they call it, I need another work, or I need more health, or I want to get rid of this emotion stuff, or having less stress, or whatever, or it doesn't matter. Underneath is really like a big search to really reconnect with yourself. That's the main part of it. And whatever on the surface is coming as a question or a story, this, for me, this is the main delivering. I'm delivering actually what you weren't asking yet, but you coming with a problem or a story. So, and also it's not about, when I hear yes, it's about I want a life which is easier or more fun or more light or more money or more whatever. I always hear and see a heart and a soul who wants to be fulfilled with whatever it is doing in the day and experiencing. That's the most what I see and what I hear in my awareness. And a lot of the people are not connected with that. A lot of people are in their head. And that's also a choice. And there's not one thing which is better as the other one. It's just a choice which gains more awareness or not more awareness, whatever you choose.
So do you believe that people can be fully happy?
Yeah. And it has nothing to do what you think happiness could be. It has nothing to do. It's for me. It's not necessarily a giggling and very out happiness, showing off happiness. It can be sometimes, but it's a state. For me, it's a state. It's a state. Even if the tears are running and you are sad, the bigger space is happiness. So happiness is like a big ocean, and in that there are some drops of tears which are a bit sad. What? So what? Does it matter? No. Doesn't matter. Also the sadness, also the anger, whatever shows up. And this, in my awareness, in my perception, you can find when you start reconnecting with yourself. Not with your programs. First you find out what you are not, and then you find more and more who you are. Sometimes you have big awakens, which brings you also very quickly there. And it's in you, it's not somewhere else, it's in you. Nobody can tell you about that, nobody can find it for you. It's you connecting with that. It's coming home.
Yeah.
Coming home.
Well, thank you for doing this. I don't think I've probably asked everything that I wanted to know, because there's, I think, a lot of things that I can't really think of right now, but probably there's going to be some in the future when I'll ask them. But I think for now, I think I actually understand more actually from this conversation, and yeah, I wanted to thank you.
Ask your heart. Ask your heart. Ask your heart. And yes, we can do it again with other questions. I'm here, and thank you for these possibilities, Isidora. I really enjoyed your energy and also being with you and also your questions. Really grateful for your questions. And yes, whenever you want, we can do another recording.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too. And you know, if you rehear it again and you have questions to that, then please share. Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. Ciao.